Hi everyone, Richard here at Calvin Wazoo bringing you another video, and it's video in the mail. So I've been ordering some albums through online vendors and getting them shipped to me. One that finally came because it was being shipped from Taiwan. I mean, I seriously thought it got lost. Um, and then another one that I got a while ago, but I've been really kind of thinking about the album and kind of wanted to say a little bit more about it. So I wanted to give it some more listens and also compare it to the CD that I have. So let's get started. So recently I was listening to some of my CDs, some of them from the 90s, but others, more recent. And I started thinking, wow, I wonder if this is available on vinyl, because some CDs, especially with some newer artists, they don't press it on vinyl. And then there's the other thing too, is that when it's a digital master and it's then pressed to vinyl, it doesn't always sound real good. But anyway, I've had this CD for a while, this Ugly Casanova. And I first heard music from this while I was in a bar. Um, it's a neighborhood bar here, brew pub. Really like their beer. And I sure hope they pull through, with restrictions, for the pandemic. We've had good weather, so for outdoor seating. But anyway, yeah, Ugly Casanova. I heard it there at this brew pub, and I tried to Shazam it, and there was too much background noise. I couldn't hear. So I asked him, what it was. And the song that really got me was "Ice on the Sheets." It's just got this really kind of funky, weird, syncopated rhythm, down, 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 and then the guy in the background is kind of screaming, "I saw the sheets," and it's like, it just was so interesting. I'd never heard anything like it before. And, I ended up getting the CD, and then I found that it was also available on vinyl. And I got this a couple, yeah, about 3 weeks ago, maybe even a little more. But I've been giving it a listen because it has all the music that's on the CD, and it's also on some very cool green marbled vinyl. But it's a double album, and three sides are what's on the CD. And then the fourth side is some extra material that apparently this group did. Yeah, with four bonus songs. So thing about Ugly Casanova, the vinyl was released in October, or this version was October 2015. The CD came out, I believe that was in May of 2002. So on Sub Pop. And the story goes is that there was this mythical legend, that there was some guy named Edgar E. Graham, and he met the guys who are in Modest Mouse, roughly around 1998, I think. And yeah, 2002 it says here for the CD. Anyway, so they met in 1998, apparently at a Denver concert, and this Edgar Graham was kind of like pitching. He had some songs, and he was kind of pitching it to the band, and so they decided to do this project that they called Ugly Casanova. So it's kind of a similar legend to what the residents had with this persona Snakefinger. The difference being Snakefinger is real. Snakefinger is a real performer, musician. And even though who are the members of the residence is completely shrouded in mystery, one of the best kept secrets in the popular music industry. But anyway, um, Edgar Graham is not real. This was a made up story. Um, Apparently, Isaac Brock made the whole thing up. He's a member of Modest Mouse. And what Isaac Brock was searching for was this creative outlet where he could do something that wasn't typical Modest Mouse. So, and the lineup included, for making this in particular, although there were a lot of Modest Mouse people when they were kind of doing a ugly Casanova tour, but for this release, there was Brock of Modest Mouse, and then there was Tyler Riley from In the Dark, and then Tim Rutili, who was both with Caliphone and Red Red Meat. And then there was Paul, and that would be Pall, Paul Jenkins of the Black Heart Procession. And then John Orth of Holopaw, and then Brian Deck of also of Red Meat. So that's who put this thing together, and it's really interesting. The whole recording process and the vocals, they are distorted. Sometimes they sound like singing through a tin can. And then the orchestration can be very sparse, but also sometimes, really melodic, and sometimes a little whimsical and maybe melancholy in a way. I mean, like the song Cat Faces is really kind of a sweet, beautiful song, because it's talking about putting, how you prick a pie crust, the top layer crust, so that steam can rise out of the pie, and they put cat faces, for that type of thing. Ice in the Sheets, though, is the one for sure that hooked me to all this, and I had to find this on CD, and then initially on CD, and then later on vinyl. Cool stuff. I am not really familiar with Modest Mouse, and I don't really have a desire. I suppose I could listen to some Modest Mouse on YouTube, but I went to see REM in Chicago, and this was in June of 2008, I think. And Modest Mouse was one of the opening acts. And I really didn't enjoy it. Now, part of the reason I didn't enjoy it is we were at a concert in the United Center. So we're talking about a big sports arena, indoor sports arena. And sometimes, acoustics in these types of concerts, you get a lot of echo going on with the sound, and that can create this hum that is constantly going on, and then it makes it hard to listen to the performers. And I was completely unfamiliar with Modest Mouse. I couldn't understand what they were singing. And musically, it sounded very muddled, and that could have had a lot to do with just the acoustics inside the United Center. But of course, with REM, I'm very familiar with their music. Have a lot of their catalog both on CD and on vinyl. So I was very familiar, with the song, so it didn't matter. I could hear my, even if it was kind of distorted, and even with songs that I was unfamiliar with, I could still hear them. So yeah, I'm not really sure about Modest Mouse, but the Ugly Casanova, for sure, I like this. This is very cool stuff. Very different stuff, but very cool. And I believe it is the only release as Ugly Casanova that they ever did. So anyway, there are a couple other things that I also got in the mail to get. This was very cool that I was able to get this. This was shipped from Taiwan, but even with the shipping, the price was within reason. I have seen this in other record stores. It's a sort of a soundtrack to our neighbor Totoro, or My Neighbor Totoro, anime film by Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki. Just it is wonderful music, really, really wonderful music. It is a wonderful film as well. I have it on DVD. I'm kind of an anime fan on certain shows. I have some anime soundtracks on vinyl. Just as an aside, I tracked down because there was an anime series called Mushishi, and the music, the soundtrack with this anime series was just incredible. Being played on, it's a Japanese stringed instrument. There's a Japanese style. It's kind of like you pluck it kind of like a guitar, but I think you can also hammer the strings. And there's a Japanese version, a Chinese version that has a slightly different name. There's a Korean version, slightly different name, slightly different design, and I can't remember what it is, but just amazing, amazing music. And I tracked down a vendor, um, yeah, in Japan that had this, and so this turned out to be a bit of an expense to buy this and also get it shipped because it's a very, very um, uncommon release, and it's not available on vinyl. So I had to get the CD. But certainly, I really, really enjoy that. And then another one that I got from that same Taiwanese vendor is this one here. This is Shen, who is a Taiwanese pop singer, very, very, very popular in the 80s. But he died in a car crash. And so there's the wax. He was known as the Taiwanese Whitney Houston because he had incredible voice range, particularly up in the higher end. Um, I have a CD collection of his greatest hits, so to speak. That's how I first became familiar with his music, which I picked up while I was in Taiwan on a trip. I've been to Taiwan 2 times. Yeah, twice. I was trying to think if it was 3 times, but I think it's just twice. Anyway, and that's where I picked up that CD collection of his greatest hits. And then again, I began wondering the problem with getting the vinyl. See, this is a special new release. It's numbered, so they're really pricey. And there's a third one I want to get. I have two of his releases now, and they're all sung in Mandarin, Taiwanese dialect of Mandarin. But I have some Chinese friends who have helped me translate some of the songs because while I was initially drawn to the strength of his voice and singing and the composition of the songs just from a musical point of view, I wanted to know what some of these songs were about. And so it's kind of an interesting process because what people would do is, a Chinese or Taiwanese friend would provide the literal translation for me. And I would look at that, and then I would, obviously the Chinese to English, it just doesn't, it's like translating a poem. I mean, it's difficult enough when you translate a book, getting the right words in the vernacular and the idioms that we use in English. And because that vernacular and the idioms are going to be very different in another language. So I would have them tell me in general, what is this song about? And then they would give me the rough or raw verbatim translation of the words. And then I would go through, and with some of the songs, I would kind of, all right, if this is what the song is about, I would kind of rewrite them so that I was using English words, but they were words that fit the singing style and singing rhythm. And some of these, I haven't done that with all these songs, but I try to do that with a non-English singer. Find out what the song is about, get that literal translation, and then kind of work into the idea of, well, how, in keeping with the same rhythm, how would you sing that in English? It's kind of fun, in a way, and interesting. And then my appreciation for the music grows even more by investing in that. So there is another. I've got two of these releases, and they were both very pricey because they were limited edition releases. And plus I was kind of disappointed when I got this because it was warped, and it's playable. The warp is very noticeable. I mean, you can see it. It's it is probably just as close to being unplayable as it can get, and still, the needle tracks fine, and there is no discernible distortion to the sound. And I have, I'm using a Nagaoka stylus, cartridge and stylus, so it's not like I'm using junk equipment. So it tracks okay, and it plays fine. But like I say, it's kind of disappointing that I spent that money, waited for it to get shipped here, and then it was warped. So that happens, especially when you buy something from overseas. I try to do all my shopping for overseas vinyl during the winter, because I don't want it coming through the mail during the summer, because in transit, that's when warping can occur. And I ordered this in the beginning of, I'm thinking it was the end of April or the beginning of May. And I didn't get it until toward the end of June. It finally arrived. And when it arrived, and I did some tracking, it arrived in a U.S. post office and sat there for a couple of weeks before before it got moved out into distribution to be delivered. So the warping could have occurred, while it was sitting in a hot warehouse someplace here in the U.S., or it could have happened while it was being shipped. Whatever. At least it plays, and I'm happy about that. But that happens. Anyway, yeah. So that's some cool stuff that I have been buying in the mail. Some vinyl in the mail. What have you been buying in the mail recently? Some of your experiences, maybe buying internationally. But do you know anything, or do you have some vinyl releases on some anime films? Talk about them. So leave a comment. Please like and share my video. Share it with friends. I hope to see you again in a future video. And please remember to always enjoy your music.